Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another battle to the death for you today. We have the Icon, the Spyderco Delica 4, taking on the newcomer in the Steel Will Intrigue. This is the mini version. They also make a larger version with a 3.6-inch blade, which would compare very much the same way that these two are going to compare if this was an Endura 4, which is just kind of a larger Delica. So 90% of what I'm going to say would apply if I had both of those knives, but these are the size ones that I've got. Just to specify, the Delica 4 we are using is the standard Delica 4. This is the VG10 FRN handled version, which goes for $74, which is one area where the Intrigue is not at all the same. It is $39. So price difference is a big gap between these two, but other than that, I think they're very, very similar. As soon as I picked this up, it reminded me of a Delica. It just came right to my mind. I think it feels a lot like a kind of modernized Delica. So it'd be very interesting to compare it just to see how if the old Icon still stacks up to the new, cheaper, new kid on the block, I guess. Let's do some specs to show how similar these are before we get any farther. I'm going to leave them both on here as I do, but we will start with the Delica on top. We have an overall length of just a bit over 7 inches, blade length of 2.9 inches. You have a very thin blade of 0.09 inches, a handle thickness of 0.4 inches, and an overall weight of just 2.5 ounces. Both of these knives are very, very light. Let's go to the Mini Intrigue. You have an overall length of 7.5 inches. As you can see, it's just a touch longer. Again, these are half-inch squares here for your reference. You have a blade length of 3.1 or 3.2 inches, and you have a handle thickness of 0.12 inches, so a little thicker blade here. Handle thickness of 0.44, and a weight of, I'm going to scroll my notes there a bit, 2.2 ounces. So a little bit lighter, but not by a whole lot. Very, very similar in almost every spec, as you can see, and they're both FRN style handles. So yeah, that's why they reminded me. So let's go through the rules here before we get too far. How this works, if you guys have not watched one of these before, 7 categories. You've got aesthetics, quality, blade, ergonomics, carry, deployment, and value. I'm going to add up the scores at the end of that. You get 1 point for each category one, and we're going to pick a winner. So let's get right into it. First, let's talk about aesthetics. Delica 4 has been around for a while. It's never been what anyone would call a pretty knife, I don't think. It definitely is a very functional design. It's definitely function over form, but it's not super pretty. It does come in a bazillion different colors. I got the purple one because I'm odd, but you can get it in a plain old black or gray if you want to. It's in some. You may like some colors and really want it just because it's that color. That's fine, but overall design-wise, just shape and style, I think I like the Steel Will much more. This does come in 2 colors. It's got this gray with these I refer to as brilliant blue standoffs, or you can get it in black with very bright red standoffs stuck in there. I just like the overall shape and design of the Intrigue much more than the Delica. The Delica's never been one that I was really hot on the looks of. So it does come in more colors, so I do give it a little bit of an advantage for that, but I still have to give a narrow win in the aesthetics department to the Intrigue. So that's 1 point for the Intrigue. Now for quality, could not make a choice. They're both very well made. This one is made in China, D2 steel and FRN, and this is in Japan with VG10 and FRN. Yeah, both have really great blade centering. Both have 0 blade play. The FRN on both is done very, very well. Yeah, they're both really well done. I really can't pick one between the other. That's it. And oh yeah, and the aesthetics too. Always kind of annoyed me that the Delica had this black pocket clip on the like this particular one. I got it in purple. Give me a shiny pocket clip. I forgot to mention that in the aesthetics. That's another reason why I give it to this, but now I'm just kind of piling on. It already won. Move on. You don't need to add something else to it. So I already won that category. All right. So in quality, I call them even. They're both very well done, both very well made. I will say In the past, I had a cut jack that was made in the same factory as this that I had a little minor issue with, but I had a Modus made in the same factory. That one was fine. I think I just got a bad one of the cut jacks. It was one of the very first ones. This is great. I haven't had to touch it, and it's been perfectly fine out of the box. So I have not touched either of these. I haven't opened them up and done anything to them, and quality-wise, they've both been very, very, very good. Now, let's move on to the blade. This one was kind of a tough choice for me. You have D2 steel on the steel wheel and VG10 on the Delica 4. I have oft said I'm not a fan of Spyderco's VG10. I think it's a bit soft, and I think it does not hold an edge for terribly long. But I do like how slicey the blade shape is. It's that nice thin blade stock. It is a really good slicer. Steel Wheels D2 I've had very good luck with. It's held an edge very, very well. This has a nice, good EDC thick tip to it, so I do like that. It's a really good piercer. It's not nearly the slicer that the Delica is, though. So, yeah, I'm going to have to call that one a tie, too. I'm not really sure. I do much prefer Steel Wheels D2 over Spyderco's VG10, but there are things about the blade shape I like on each one of them. So, yeah, I'm going to have to call it a tie. I really couldn't decide. I went back and forth and back and forth. You can make a case for either. Just kind of depends on which blade shape you prefer, really, I think, for your particular EDC tasks. Now, Ergonomics. This is what reminded me one of the other. When I picked this up, I just thought, oh, it's got a nice little thin handle like the Delica does. And I thought that's kind of what made me think about comparing it to the Delica, the FRN and the texturing and blah, blah, blah. I thought, oh, it kind of reminds me of a Delica. But then I picked up the Delica, and it reminded me, one of the reasons the Delica is such an icon, ergonomics on the Delica are just great. They're really, really good. This is fine, but this just fills your hand just that little bit better. This multi-angle grip, I can't remember what they call it now. It's totally left my mind. I always really, really remember it, but two-way grip stuff works really well. It really grips in your hand extremely well. No hot spots. You can choke up a little bit there on that choil. We can't choke up like a forward finger choil, but you have this back, thumb ramp. That's the word I'm looking for. You can really use that thumb ramp, do some good detail stuff with it. And it fits all four fingers perfectly fine. Even though it is a shorter knife, it does fit my four fingers just a little bit better than the Intrigue does. So I'm going to say ergonomics, very clear win to the Delica on that one. I think the Delica is a much better ergonomic knife. Now, in the carry, this one was a very clear win for the steel wheel. If you look at these, how they're going to be in your pocket, I like to do them kind of upside downy like this. We're using this line like that's the top of your pocket there. You can see thinner. This is a much thicker knife. It's much easier to get your hand past this. It does have the flipper tab sticking out, but they angle the clip well enough that never is really an issue, and it's a little sharp when you're coming back on it like this. I think I mentioned that in the full review of this too. You do feel that just a smidge, but not much. So much less knife sticking out of your pocket than there is on the Delica. I have to give a pretty clear win just for how slim this thing is to the steel wheel. Weight-wise, they're about the same. Handle thickness-wise, they're about the same. No real clear winner there, but just how slim this is. The Delica is a very wide knife for how much blade you're getting out of it. So, clear win on the carry for that. Now, on deployment, I'm just going to get right to it. I also have to say the steel wheel. Now, the Delica 4 does have this back lock. They're known to be very strong. Spyderco's back lock is very strong. I get it, but it is not really a flickable knife at all. I mean, you can, but you saw how dramatic I have to get with it. It's not really a flicky, fidgety thing. I know that's not a huge factor for everyone, but most of the time, and then closing it, it does close, but yet again, you got to get a bit of a flick, where it's mostly a rollout kind of opening, and it's okay. There is a bit of sharp edge here, when you're rolling it out on that Spidey hole. It's fine. It works fine, but this is just really good. It is a flipper. It runs on phosphor bronze washers, and it just pops right out. The detent is outstanding on it. Best of the D2 steel wheels that I've ever had. And it just works great. I really do like it. And if this was the larger version, I think it would work even better because you'd have more weight of the blade on it. This, to close it, you still kind of got just a little bit of a flick, not much. I think with the heavier blade, you'd have to give it even less and it would just fall right shut. So deployment, I have to give it to the steel wheel again. Now in value, I mean, look at the scores so far. Steel wheel's winning a lot of categories, tying others, and it costs, you know, what is that, 40%? Or no, sorry, 60% as much as this costs? I'm not good at math. 60% as much as the Delica 4, and it's winning all these categories. And I'm being very objective here, guys. I know that I've bashed on the Delica before, but only because of the price. That's the only. I love everything about it, except the price. If this was a $55 knife, I'd feel a lot better about it. But 75 versus 39, whew, I can't think of why I'd spend that much money on this when you're going feature for feature compared to the Intrigue. I just can't. Which draws us to our very obvious conclusion. If I had no knives and I was buying a lightweight EDC knife of this size range, yeah, I'd go Intrigue. Now, if you live in an area that requires 3 inches or less blade, yes, the Delica blade is a bit shorter. This is over 3 inches. But taking that consideration out, if both of these are legal in your area and just looking at their value, yeah, I'd have to go with the Intrigue. Absolutely. Now, the value category is the most important one. But even if these cost the same amount of money, so this one, the steel wheel and the final score one, I skipped ahead of that. We have 4 to 1 and 2 ties. Even if the value category was thrown out, it still would have won 3 to 1 with 2 ties. So I find that the value category is the most important one, but still, I think this is a clear win. Most clear win I've had in any of my comparisons I've done. If I was going to buy one of these today as my only knife, I would get the Intrigue over the Delica 4 every day of the week. I love the Delica 4 for what it is and what it represents, but as I said in another video about the Delica 4, it needs an update. They need to do something. Change the blade steel. Keep the VG10 one, but knock the price down on this and make a higher end one, like make the Zome a permanent model. I think some of the Spyderco Delica 4 sprint runs and things that they do, and the different handle materials and all that, and the fancy steels, I think those are worth it. This is a great design. Awesome design. But it just doesn't have the bang for the buck anymore. So, very clearly, the steel wheel Intrigue. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. And again, I'm not trying to pile on Delica. I know this is my second negative Delica 4 video. It still is an outstanding design. I just think it needs some tweaks to keep up with the new guys like the steel wheel Intrigue. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.